So it's long since time I changed over my chain, and every time you do a chain it's just good practice to do the front and rear sprockets at the same time. Now I've already taken it off my rear wheel, so I know I've showed you in other videos, but just a reminder, loosen the adjusters, little Allen bolts in here and here, and that's the part here, as you can see, that just slides and makes the wheel adjust. I absolutely took mine off this time round, but in this case you can just loosen the 40mm nut that holds on the rear caliper mount, and I've carefully put my here you see the rear caliper, which we updid in one of the other videos. Knock the bolt out with the wheel supported, and that will come straight off, and then release the chain, which is this one here. Normally I wouldn't let it lie on the floor like this, but seeing as this is the one that's going to be replaced. So rear wheel tick. Coming on round, so take the cover off. Now you'll see here that we need to get to this nut here, but all the clutch linkage is in the way. So what we're going to do is take a 12mm and undo that one, and then that's going to give us then access to move this clutch cable in out of the way and give us access to that nut there. Now that that's all undone and released, we can move that one out of the way, and then we can take that. So this pushes through. Need more hands. Hold the clutch linkage. We just slip that up. Try and do this one-handed. Slip that out like that, and then that will come off. So then the whole clutch linkage will come off, and that means then we can get to that. Okay, so you can see here that it's bent across, right flush against the nut. So what we need to do is very, very carefully get that flattened out again, so then we'll be able to undo this. Okay, so a bit of perseverance, so we've now got that out of the way. Now that that's tidied away, it's a 32mm on that one, and I've attached it to a big old breaker bar. So let's see if we can get this one undone, shall we? The mistake I made is where I've taken the rear wheel off, when I then came to undo this bolt, this just spins. The whole sprocket just spins and tries to take the chain with it. So what I did is I wrapped the chain around the paddock stand, and then that enabled me to then loosen off this nut. So we take that one off, and then there's that washer. Brilliant. And now at the front sprocket, take the chain off as well. There we go. And that front sprocket just comes straight off there. Here's a direct comparison between the old sprocket and the new sprocket. You can see from the edges of the teeth, should be much better when we've got this new one in place. So this is the rear wheel off the bike, so I'm also going to replace the rear sprocket as well. This just comes off. There you go. And underneath there you'll see the cush drives. Now these cush drives are just there to support the wheel, and if there's any shock it just stops it going through into the transmission. We're going to leave those there. Put this back on. These nuts are 14mm, so we just undo these, and then we can put our new sprocket back on over the top. These were on very, very tight, so breaker bar. This is a girl's new best friend, so just enable me to put enough force on it to be able to get these undone. And now that they're started, as you can see, they now undo very, very easily. So I'll do this for all of these nuts. Right, as I start to undo these, I just want to show you the other side. So you'll see here that they've got a cutout which sits into that recess there. So when we go to put these back together again, it's really important that we get these the right way around, so they sit in neatly like that. But it also means that when we're trying to undo them and they loosen up, it makes them a little bit more tricky. So hold it into place, and that's nearly undone anyway. And then it will just carry on undoing while you're holding the back, just to get all of these off. So just for comparison, that's the old sprocket and that's the new one. So again, this should just lift. There you go, that'll lift up. And again, if I compare the teeth, and side on, you can see that there's quite a bit of wear in mine, so it's very much a good time to get these swapped over. Right, so that just sits in place, And then just like before, exactly the same as we put these straight back in, and remember to get this side flush. Against that part there, so they sit in properly, and it'll be the same for all 5 of them. Right, so new sprocket fitted. Looking it up on the Haynes manual, these nuts here tightened up to 60 Newton meters, so everything's to torque as always. Wheels been cleaned, ready to reassemble the rear wheel. Here's the chain braking kit, good old eBay. So my one came with not a lot of instructions, as in any. So a couple of videos later and I figured out how to use it. So I thought what I would do is put it all together and show you the same. So just to go through the parts. So here's the main chain press, the main part here, and this is the handle. So the handle will actually screw onto that part there and give us something to hold on to over the process. Fantastic. So the press plate and this plate here and the riveter are used for when we put the chain back together. That lever there can fit inside that to enable us to twist and use it. Now these kits do all sorts of chain sizes, right the way from bicycle sort of chains right the way up to motorbike chains. So this is the 3.8 one, this is the one that we're going to use. So we take the spring, put it over the top, there we go, and then what we need to do is unscrew this all the way. Okay, on this one we also don't need this one either. These are great for the smaller pins, just to act as a bit of a guide to get them. Okay, so here is the chain breaker we've got here. So we've put in the 3/8 pin into the middle with the spring. We've then got the other screw that's here. So on the rear, that hole there is going to fit into one of these rivets, but on the back side here, just so it's got something to latch onto. What will then happen is we get the pin. Right, so the pin is recessed slightly, yeah, so that then forms the guide for the chain breaker to sit on. What then happens is this bolt here is done up so it's nice and tight, about hand tight plus a little bit, yeah, just so that holds on to the chain link there and there. And then what will then happen is this inner one, that then rotates in, pushing the pin out, and ideally pushing the pin then right the way through and then out from this hole, out the other side. So we've got the chain breaker hand tightened on. What we can then do, as you can see, it's nice and secure there. We can also then use, if we wish, a 14mm spanner just to tighten it up and nip it up tight a little bit. What we're then going to do is tighten this one here. This is what's actually going to push the pin right the way through and ideally push the pin out through the other side. The first few turns were really stiff, so I had to use the spanner to get that going. And now you can see I can almost do it one-handed, much looser, so I'm hopeful that means the pin isn't far from popping out the other side. Obviously, when I come to the other side here, I can feel that the pin's being pushed out. So I know that we've not got long to go. Excellent. It's gone right the way through, and now it's suddenly gone really slack again, so there's no resistance at all. So hopefully, ta-da! There's the pin from the chain. Right, if we take this off now, the chain should fall apart. And so there we have a de-linked chain. So as I removed the tool, the other half fell down to the ground there. Okay, so my replacement chain is a D.I.D chain. I went for the X-ring style. So there we go, nice and simple. So in this bag we've got a little bag of grease that comes in. We've got 4 little rubber O-rings. We've got the main pin here and a cover plate as well. Okay, so we're going to put this one back together. This time on the chain tool, okay, we're going to use this. Oh, you can see that? Cool. Yeah, that's the back plate, and what that's going to do, if I use the chain, the old chain here, on the back side, that sits in like that, so it doesn't move. See how it uses the 2 rivets from the chains just to hold it into place? So that will then sit on the rear side. This one, yeah, will then press into the front side like that. So effectively, looking at the chain tool, we have one on one side, that's on the front, one on that side, that's the back, and then when we compress these together slowly, that will enable us to do the chain. Now it's going to be really important to use loads of grease on the O-rings, and I will show you to lay both chains out to compare, also to make sure that I had the right length, that type of thing. And as you go along the chains, you can see the old one on the left hand side with all the bumps and kinks, rust, and the new one on the right hand side. Definitely time to get replaced. The new chain is on loosely, and as you can see, there's the point that we're going to put the new connectors on. Just a point to note, when I put the new chain on, because I'd taken it off completely so I could compare the 2 chains, when I tried to put it back on, I thought there was a problem and the chain wasn't long enough. However, of course, when I took and undid everything, the rear wheel here had slid back, which meant of course the chains didn't connect. So when I put it together, pushing the rear wheel right forwards, as you can see right the way here on the guidelines, meant then of course it fitted no problem at all. Here's that little packet of grease I talked about before, and here we have the 4 new rubber O-rings. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this grease on each of these. 2 of them are going to go over the top, and then the other 2 will go on the front, all very well greased. The grease will actually help it hold into place as well. So there we have it, 2 very well greased O-rings, and I've greased the insides really well as well. There's oodles of grease now, so those push forward. And then what we're going to do is grease the other 2 O-rings that will go and sit nicely here and here. Right, so the front O-rings are on, so now we've got the front part, and we just pop that over the top, just get it to hold into place. Excellent. Here we've got the chain tool again, so as you can see the back plate here used 2 of the rivets across the back to fit that into place, and then this front plate that had the 2 holes in it, by looking through those holes I then looked for the rivets here coming through those holes, so I knew that I got it lined up. Now as you can see from this view, you can see how far apart the new chain is from the old chains. So again, we've got to make sure that we don't over tighten it. So I'm going to use some vernier calipers to measure the distance between the previous chain and then tightening up the new chain. I'm going to keep stopping and checking to make sure that I don't over tighten it, because you can always tighten it a bit more, but once you go too far, that's it. So plenty of time to take, making sure we get this right. Right, I haven't finished yet, but just to show you. So as I've tightened these up, you can see that they've started to come through this hole that they weren't through before. So again, if I look at it from this angle here, so you can see from where the old chains were to where the new ones are, it's not quite in enough yet, but by taking it off I can actually check that I am along the right level. Not that much more to go. So we'll put the tool back on and carry on. Pretty pleased because I can see here that it's coming right the way through. Using a set of vernier calipers, so using one of the factory made rivets. Okay, so looking at the scale here, that's going to be 18 mil. So again, doing the same thing. Yeah, fantastic. So I know that that is tightened the same amount as the factory version. Now what we need to do is use the rivet tool on this to flare the edges so that that doesn't come off then. Before I put the chain tool together, this is going to be the rivet part. Exactly like we did before with the bar that pushed out the link, this is the rivet bar. Now you see it's got like a small dome on top. What's going to happen is that's going to fit into there. You can see it sort of fits into the hole, clicks into place, and you see that there's a small gap until it reaches that lip. So when we screw it in and that touches, that will push this out and cause it to have a rivet effect so it won't move anywhere, just like these other ones. So now what we're going to do is use that rivet piece here, that goes into the back here, brilliant, and then the smaller screw is going to go into there. That's it. And now this time what we need to do is use one of these anvil pieces, and what that's going to do is sit on the back and stop it. Now if you use this tool without that, what will happen is you'll accidentally, using the rivet tool, push this pin back out the wrong way and it will come out the other side. So the rivet tool, which is going to be in this part here, that's going to brace against it and stop that from happening. So then as we screw in with the rivet, what we want that to do then is we want that to make this edge piece here splay so that it holds it nicely in place like these other ones. There's one done, so you can see the side-by-side comparison. So that one, the rivet tool's gone all the way in, splayed it out a little bit, and that's the one that's yet to be done. So you can see now that one's going to hold really secure, and again just making sure it's got good movement and it's working exactly the way it should be. So I'll just do this other one now, and there we have it. So the chain is now on. It's now flowing really well. So what now needs to happen is I need to tighten up the chain as I normally would do, because of course this is all loosened off, and then the bolt needs to be done up to torque. We can adjust then the chain slack like normal, but that is a new chain fitted. So here's the front sprocket. I've put the nut back on and tapered over the edge of the washer as well to hold it in place. It's 145 Newton meters worth of torque on this bad boy, so some strong muscles required and a big breaker bar. I just need to put in the clutch linkage back and then put the cover over the top. Okay, so now when I pull on the lever, clutch linkage moves. Yeah, fantastic. Now just put the cover back. Chain now tightened to an amount that I'm happy with. What I used is the vernier calipers to make sure. Now these are the new guide plates that Biblio made off the forum site, which is fantastic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it's just on the 6th notch. However, I've been told that these notches can sometimes be a bit inaccurate, so using a set of these, just confirming that to the edge, and then if we go around to the other side. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the edge, and that. So now what we can do is tighten up the rear axle nut to the correct torque, and that's it. The rear wheel, rear sprockets, everything is ready to go.